With College Football 26 a few short months away, it's time to talk about everything that we know so far as it pertains to the upcoming College Football 26 video game. Now, over the next couple of months, we're going to start to get a lot more concrete information from EA Sports themselves. Probably within the next month to 6 weeks, we might get our first trailer, we might get a cover reveal, and a few little tidbits about the game. And as we get closer to the release, they're going to talk about more and more. But so far, we do know a decent bit about the game. And if you've been following the channel over the past few months, you might know some of these, but I'm going to kind of recap everything that we know, as well as go over something small that we did just find out a few days ago, something that I didn't feel was necessary to make an entire video just on that one thing, but I'm going to talk about that here because it is also important. Now, if you are new to the channel and you never want to miss out on any of the updates for this game, as we're going to be getting a ton of updates very soon, like I said, make sure to subscribe and turn the bell icon on. That way you never miss any of these important videos when they go live. Now, the first thing that we're going to talk about that we do know about the game is something that we just found out a few days ago, and that is pertaining to the players in the NIL. Now, if you watch some of my previous videos, you may remember that I was talking about how there was possibly a conflict that would be happening because the players of college football are being represented by a different group this year, the Pathway Group, I believe their name is, and this is a whole different entity that's in the mix now, and they are trying to get the players more money. Last year, all of the players got $600 plus a copy of the game. Some few players got more for marketing purposes or maybe being on the cover. Those guys may have gotten a little bit more money, but the standard was $600 and a copy of the game. Now, this year, the Pathway Group was saying that they were trying to get their players around $1,500, which, you know, when you're talking about EA, they make a lot of money, doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you talk about over 10,000 players, you know, that's in the tens of millions of dollars, and when you talk about the budgets that games have, this could have potentially been a problem for getting maybe real players in the game, or maybe losing out on more players than last year, because last year's game didn't really miss out on any players. Nobody actually really opted out. Well, the good news is that it did come out a few days ago that EA is planning to actually give the players $1,500 this year and a copy of the game. So they're paying players more than double from last year. And hey, with the success that last year's game had, it's kind of a no-brainer. Having real players in the game definitely does help a bit for, you know, how well the game sold. It was obviously going to sell really well no matter what, but having the real names in there definitely takes it over the top. So they will be paying the players $1,500. Some probably will get more for the marketing purposes, but this means we should have all of the players in the game this year, over 10,000 players. I believe last year we had about 12,000, so we'll probably be seeing somewhere around that number again. We don't have to worry about the real rosters not being in the game. Moving on to the next thing that we know about the game, this kind of leaked about a few weeks ago when the cover shoot got leaked, and we saw that there were real coaches on the cover, and not only that, but they were giving coaches their own separate cover this year. So usually they do 2 or 3 different covers. This year it leaked that they're doing 3 covers: the standard cover, the coach edition cover, and a legend edition cover. But the coach one is the one that's most important because legends already exist in the game because of Ultimate Team, so that's not really anything new or anything to really look at. But the coach is getting their own cover, pretty much confirmed that coaches are going to be in the game. And this was a rumor that we were already hearing. This is something they wanted to get into the game even last year, but they just weren't able to do it. And they said that this year it was going to be one of the things they were going to try to do. And now with having coaches on both the regular cover, but their own cover as well, they wouldn't do that if coaches weren't going to be in the game. There would literally be no reason to do that because it would almost be like false advertising in a way, right? Whereas like with legends, you can give legends their own cover, whether or not you have legends available in the regular game. They're still a part of Ultimate Team, so they're still involved in the game in some capacity. Coaches, however, were not involved in the game at all. They were all generic. So we do know we're getting real coaches next year, which is a pretty cool thing, and I think a lot of people, from what I saw, wanted to see that happen. Now, we're going to continue on with some other important things that we know about College Football 26, but really quick, here's a word from today's video sponsor. Something you may or may not know about me is I absolutely love sports cards. I've talked about it in the past on the channel. I used to rip them a lot when I was a kid, and I still rip them from time to time as an adult. In fact, I keep one of my favorite sports cards right here on my desk, my Drew Brees Kaboom. But that brings us to today's video sponsor, Arena Club. Now, Arena Club offers something called slab packs, which is basically a way to open real cards digitally. And then you can either have the card shipped to you, you can sell it instantly back to them, or you could keep it in your vault for trading or selling later. With slab packs, it's possible to score gem mints for a fraction of their retail price. Now, Arena Club is the only repack that provides real value, and it gives you a complete view of all of the possible cards and clear hit rates for each one. Now, my personal favorite part about Arena Club slab packs is that they will give you an instant offer on the card that you pull. So there's no guessing on your part, there's no waiting around. You'll get an instant offer of 90% of the estimated value. Or again, you can just have the card shipped to you if you actually do want the card that you pulled. Arena Club slab packs are revolutionizing the repack game with transparency. After your pulls are revealed, they'll immediately be placed in your vault for safekeeping or trading and selling. Now, Arena Club is going to be hooking you guys up. Right now, you can get 20% off of your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/RayWeather and use code RayWeather. The next thing we know about the game is it's going to have a deeper Road to Glory mode, and this is going to be a big focus for the game this year. We know this because Daryl Holt recently did an interview. He's one of the higher ups at EA. I can't remember his position off the top of my head, but he's definitely high up. He was talking about College Ball 25 last year around this time doing interviews, and he's doing the same for 26. And one of the things that he did kind of let out there was that we're going to be getting a deeper Road to Glory mode. He said that they're very aware of what players want. They've seen all the feedback, and we know that Road to Glory is one of the modes that had the most feedback this year because it's definitely the one that's, got the least to it. Like, Dynasty mode was pretty decent. Obviously, Dynasty is going to get some stuff as well, and it needs some other things, but Road to Glory was a lesser of a mode than Dynasty in a pretty big way. Now, the big rumor that we've been hearing all year is that it's going to be getting high school. I believe that to be true. That, however, has not been confirmed. The only thing that's confirmed is that the mode will indeed be deeper and be a pretty big focus, but, I mean, that to me means that high school is going to be in the game. Aside from the fact that we've heard rumors from reliable sources about this, if they're going to make Road to Glory deeper, they can't really do that without doing high school first, because that is by far the biggest criticism that maybe the entire game had last year. Outside of not being able to do roster transfers to Madden, the other thing that was the biggest talking point was that there was no high school in Road to Glory. People were really upset about that. So if you're going to make the mode deeper, there's a bunch of things you can do with it. You can add more positions, which we may get that as well. You can add more to the storylines. You can add more customization, but the number one thing you have to do is add high school because that's the number one complaint. So if you're going to make the mode deeper, you start there. So I'm pretty confident in saying that that will be in the game. The next thing we know is that we're going to also have a deeper Dynasty mode. Now, they haven't spoken too much about this in particular, but something interesting that did happen at the beginning of the year when College Ball 25 came out, about a month or two into the game, they sent out surveys to a lot of players asking them about what their biggest needs and wants were for the game for next year. And for Dynasty mode, they were listing things like trophy room and formation subs and a few of the things that were very big talking points during the season. When this game came out, the biggest criticisms for Dynasty mode were, aside from the fact that you couldn't transfer rosters to Madden, but we know that that's kind of more, I think that's more of an NIL situation than anything else. But that aside, it was no trophy room, no formation subs, among some other things. But those were two, big talking points. Not that those two things in particular are these massive features that they'd be bringing to the game, but they were just two of the, I would say, smaller talking points that were mentioned a lot. And they were also a part of that survey that was sent out. So I'm pretty confident that both of those things will be in the game, because I'm pretty sure they were even trying to bring formation subs to 25, but it just fell a little short. So I could see that definitely being in 26. I think the trophy room is a pretty easy addition, and it seems like that is something that is higher up on the priority list for Dynasty fans, so that's probably going to be in the game. But aside from that, they're going to definitely be doing some stuff with recruiting. We've heard leaks about that where they want to do a lot more with recruiting, make it more in depth, make things like motivations for players more dynamic where they can switch and change. So we do know Dynasty mode is going to for sure be deeper. Part of that kind of goes without saying. You kind of have to do that, but we know some specific things that it seems like they're looking to add. Another thing we know is that there's going to be new gameplay mechanics. Now, you might say this goes without saying, but not necessarily. So when Daryl Holt did that interview recently where he talked about Road to Glory being deeper, he also mentioned that there would be new gameplay mechanics. And again, you might say, well, that kind of goes without saying. The gameplay is always going to get some attention, but at least as it pertains to Madden, which I've covered for many years, Madden typically doesn't get new gameplay mechanics every single year. That's more of an every other year type of thing where they might change the passing system or change a defensive mechanic or something like that. Usually that's more of an every other year thing for EA, and in between that, they're doing a lot of tweaking and kind of just polishing the stuff that they implemented from the year before, making some adjustments, making it better. You expect them to do things like add new plays. They're definitely going to add new plays to the gameplay. They're going to change the movement up a little bit because they always tweak that. They're going to mess with some abilities and tweak those. They always do things like that. They're going to try to, get rid of some of the cheese and the overpowered stuff that people ran last year. But in terms of new mechanics, that's not always a guaranteed thing. But with College Ball 25, one thing that team was pretty big on was adding a lot of new mechanics. They didn't just take everything one-to-one from Madden. They added a new passing system. They added the switch stick among a few other things, and then they also implemented this into Madden as well. So the gameplay team that kind of was the leading force behind some of these new mechanics that were in both games, they're going to try to one-up themselves this year. I think that's kind of the type of team that they have for gameplay, especially with a guy like Scott O'Gallagher that leads it. He's a really big sim head, and he really cares about gameplay mechanics. So the fact that we're getting new gameplay mechanics this year on top of also having a bunch of new ones introduced to EA's football games last year, I think it's a pretty big deal. I'm not sure what these mechanics themselves are going to be, but I'm happy to see new ones because gameplay is going to be, the lifeblood of the entire game. The gameplay, is something you're going to experience no matter what mode you play. So it's always important to innovate and do more with the gameplay itself. Now, another thing that was hinted at was that the game could be coming to other platforms. This, I'm not going to say is a confirmed thing, but Daryl Holt even hinted at this in his interview recently, and I just feel like you wouldn't hint at this if you weren't actually bringing it to new platforms this year. We do know that at some point they want to be on the Switch. Would they do that this year? It's possible, but with the Switch 2 coming out pretty soon, I feel like they would probably want to wait till the Switch 2, but who knows? They could put it on the Switch, but I think the big one that people are wondering about is PC, because if you put it on PC, that opens up the room for mods and some other crazy stuff to happen. So I think with having all the NIL stuff in place now, you don't run too much of a risk in terms of modding. You have the players' rights anyway, and you have most of them. People really aren't opting out, so it's not like you can really make players, in my opinion, that are opting out of the game, right? Like, because pretty much everybody's opting in and they're getting paid a decent amount to be in it. So I don't really see where modding would be as big of an issue as maybe it could have been last year before they knew how things were going to play out. So they did hint at new platforms, so that I think that could mean PC is potentially on the table this year. Not confirmed, but something I think is worth mentioning. And on top of that, we're definitely going to be getting things like new equipment and uniforms. Some of you here, that kind of goes without saying if you've been following me in Madden for all of these years. But a lot of you here are probably new and just got back into football gaming because college football came back this past year. So you might be new to this and you don't know how EA operates year to year. Well, every year in Madden, one thing they do to some extent is they always add new equipment and they always add new uniforms. And with college, this is even bigger because we're kind of allowed to have more equipment in this game than is allowed in Madden because the NFL is just a lot stricter with that type of stuff, whereas over here, not really many restrictions. So we could see things like the ski mask or the one leg sleeve or just a number of other things. A lot of new cleats and stuff and gloves are usually added every single year because there's always new ones coming out. So you can expect stuff like that, and especially with uniforms with college, there's always so many new uniforms introduced every year, and there's so many throwbacks that are still out there that they can put in the game that we're going to be getting a lot of that stuff in 26 as well. Now, there's another really big change that's going to be coming to both college and Madden down the line, probably not this next year, but within the next few years. And if you want to find out what that is, make sure you check out this video right here on the screen.